12-year-old Emma Grace Holloway dropped to her knees in the dust, her arms wrapped around her 3 younger siblings as the rancher's shadow fell over them. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, sir, we ain't got nobody. But we got each other. Don't send us to the orphanage. They'll split us up. I promised Mama." She couldn't finish. The man standing above them hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. His eyes were cold as winter stone. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Emma remembered her mother's last words with painful clarity. "Keep them together, Emma Grace. No matter what, promise me." She had promised. 3 weeks ago, holding her mother's hand as the fever took her just 6 days after it took their father. Emma had promised. Now she knelt in the dirt of a stranger's ranch, and that promise felt heavier than anything she'd ever carried. The man above her didn't move. Silas Morgan stood like he was carved from the same wood as his fence posts. Tall, broad, silent. His face showed nothing, but Emma had learned to read people since her parents died. She saw the tightness around his jaw, the way his hands stayed shoved deep in his pockets, the slight step backward when little Sammy whimpered. This man didn't want them here. Nobody did. "Girl." Silas finally spoke, his voice rough as gravel. "You need to get up off that ground." Emma rose, slowly pulling 4-year-old Sammy with her. Tommy stood behind her, his 10-year-old shoulders squared like he was ready to fight the whole world. 7-year-old Lily clutched Emma's skirt, her face buried in the worn fabric. "Sir," Emma tried again. "We can work. All of us. Tommy's strong for his age. I can cook and clean. Lily can help with—" "I don't need help. Please just listen." I said no. The word hit Emma like a slap. She'd heard it so many times in the past 3 weeks. From the banker who took their farm, from the church ladies who said they'd pray for them, from every door they'd knocked on in town. No, no, no. But she couldn't accept it. Not this time. "Mr. Morgan?" Emma straightened her spine even though her legs wanted to collapse. "The town council wants to send us to Denver, to the foundling home. They separate children there. Boys in one building, girls in another. Sammy's only 4. He won't understand why I'm not there when he wakes up crying in the night." Silas's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Tommy stepped forward, his young face hard with anger. "We walked 3 days to get here, mister. 3 days. Lily's got blisters so bad she can barely stand. We ate berries and creek water because we ain't got nothing else. And you're just gonna turn us away like everybody else." "Tommy," Emma warned. "No, Emma." Tommy's voice shook with rage he'd been holding for weeks. "I'm sick of begging. I'm sick of people looking at us like we're diseased dogs. Our folks are dead. We didn't ask for that. We didn't do nothing wrong." Silas looked at the boy for a long moment. Something flickered in his eyes gone too fast to name. "Life ain't about fair, son," Silas said quietly. "Sooner you learn that, better off you'll be." "I already learned it." Tommy's voice cracked. "I learned it when I had to dig my pa's grave because nobody would help us." Silence fell over the yard. Even the wind seemed to stop. Emma pulled Tommy back, wrapping her arm around him. She could feel him trembling. Her fierce, angry brother, who'd been trying so hard to be a man since their father died. "I'm sorry," Emma said softly. "We'll go. We shouldn't have troubled you." She took Sammy's hand and turned toward the gate. 1 step, 2 steps. Lily started crying quietly, the way she'd learned to cry so nobody would hear. "Wait." Emma stopped but didn't turn around. "The little one." Silas's voice was strained. "She's limping." Emma turned slowly. "Yes, sir. Like Tommy said. Blisters." Silas stared at them for a long moment. His face was still hard, but something had shifted. Emma couldn't tell if it was good or bad. "One night," he said finally. "You can sleep in the barn. I'll have my foreman bring food. But come morning, you're gone. Understood? Emma's heart leaped, but she kept her voice steady. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Silas turned away. And don't expect nothing more. He walked toward the house without looking back. Emma watched him go, feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Small and fragile, but real. The barn was cleaner than most places they'd slept since leaving home. Emma settled Lily on a pile of hay, carefully unwrapping the rags from her little sister's feet. The blisters were raw and angry. Lily whimpered, but didn't cry out. You're so brave, Emma whispered. Mama would be proud. Emma. Lily's voice was small. Is the man gonna let us stay? Just for tonight, sweetheart. But what about tomorrow? Emma didn't have an answer. She never had answers anymore. She just had promises she was terrified she couldn't keep. Tommy sat in the corner, his arms crossed, glaring at the barn door, like he expected Silas Morgan to come back and throw them out any second. Tommy, Emma said softly, thank you for standing up for us. But we have to be careful. We can't make him angry. He's already angry, Tommy muttered. Did you see his face? He hates us. He doesn't hate us. He doesn't even know us. Don't matter. People like him, they don't need reasons to hate. They just do. Emma wanted to argue, but she was too tired, and part of her feared Tommy was right. Sammy crawled into her lap, his thumb in his mouth. He'd stopped talking much since Mama died. Used to be, he'd chatter all day long about bugs and clouds and anything else that caught his eye. Now he mostly just stayed silent, holding on to Emma like she might disappear too. Hungry, Sammy whispered. I know, baby. The man said someone would bring food. When? Soon. Emma hoped that was true. They hadn't eaten anything real since yesterday morning. Wild berries and creek water could only sustain them for so long. The barn door creaked open. All four children tensed. A man stepped inside, older than Silas, but with kinder eyes. He carried a tray loaded with food, bread, cheese, cold meat, apples. Name's Buck, he said, setting the tray down. I'm the foreman here. Emma stood quickly. Thank you, sir. We're very grateful. Buck studied the children, his weathered face softening. You kids been through hell, ain't you? Emma didn't answer. She didn't need to. The boss, Buck said slowly. He ain't a bad man, just a hurt one. Lost his wife and two young ones about 8 years back. Scarlet fever. Took 'em all in one terrible week. Emma felt her heart clench. She looked toward the house where Silas Morgan had disappeared. He had children, she asked quietly. A boy about this one's age. Buck nodded toward Tommy. And a girl about hers. He looked at Lily. After they passed, something in him just broke. He sent most of the hands away. Lives alone mostly. Don't talk to folks in town. Don't let nobody get close. Tommy's hard expression faltered slightly. That's why he looked at us like that. We remind him of them. Buck nodded slowly. Reckon so. Emma understood now. The coldness in Silas's eyes wasn't hatred. It was fear. The fear of a man who had already lost everything and couldn't bear to feel anything again. Mr. Buck, Emma said carefully. Do you think... Is there any chance he might let us stay longer? Even just a few days, if we work hard and don't cause trouble? Buck rubbed his jaw. Hard to say, miss. The boss has turned away folks before. Plenty of times. But... He paused, looking at little Sammy with his thumb in his mouth, at Lily with her bandaged feet, at Tommy, trying so hard to be strong, at Emma, holding them all together. But what? Emma pressed. But I ain't never seen him invite nobody to stay the night before. Not once in 8 years. Buck moved toward the door. That's gotta mean something. He left them alone, with that small shred of hope. Emma divided the food carefully. Equal portions for everyone, though she secretly gave part of hers to Sammy. He was so young. He needed it more. They ate in silence, too hungry for conversation. Even Tommy forgot to be angry, his eyes closing with relief as real food filled his belly for the first time in days. When they finished, Emma arranged their sleeping spots in the hay. She placed Sammy between herself and Lily with Tommy on the other side, close together, the way they'd slept every night since Mama died. Emma. Lily's voice was sleepy. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mama and Papa can see us from heaven? Emma's throat tightened. I think so, yes. Then they know we're safe tonight. Yes. Emma stroked her sister's hair. They know. Lily smiled and closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into sleep. Tommy lay on his back staring at the barn roof. What are we going to do, Emma? Really? If he sends us away tomorrow, where do we go? I don't know yet. We can't go to that orphanage. We can't. We won't. Emma made her voice firm even though terror churned in her stomach. I promised Mama. I'll figure something out. You always say that. And I always mean it. Tommy turned to look at her. In the dim light, he looked younger than 10. He looked like the little boy he'd been before their world fell apart. I'm scared, Emma, he whispered. Emma reached over and squeezed his hand. I know. Me too. But we've got each other. That's more than a lot of folks have. Tommy nodded slowly. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. One by one, her siblings fell asleep. Emma stayed awake listening to their breathing, watching the moonlight creep through the cracks in the barn walls. She thought about Silas Morgan, about the pain he carried, about the family he'd lost. Maybe they were more alike than he wanted to admit. Emma woke to shouting. She bolted upright, heart pounding. Dawn light streamed through the barn slats. Her siblings stirred beside her, confused and frightened. What's happening? Lily whimpered. Stay here. Emma moved to the barn door and peered through a crack. Silas Morgan stood in the yard facing a woman in a dark dress. The woman's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Mr. Morgan, this is highly irregular. The woman clutched a leather folder against her chest. I've had reports that you're harboring vagrant children. They stayed in my barn one night, Mrs. Peterson. Hardly a crime. 4 unsupervised orphans with a single man. The impropriety alone. Impropriety. Silas's voice dropped low. Dangerous. They're children, ma'am, not scandal. Mrs. Peterson's lips thinned. The town council has made arrangements. The Denver Foundling Home has agreed to take them. It's a proper institution with proper Christian values. The children will receive education, discipline, and moral guidance. And they'll be separated. That is standard procedure. Boys and girls have different needs. They're siblings. They'll adapt. Children are resilient. Emma's hands clenched into fists. This woman talked about them like they were livestock to be sorted and shipped. Tommy appeared beside her. That's the lady who came to our house after Mama died, the church lady. She's the one who told the council to send us away. Emma remembered. Ruth Peterson, head of the Ladies' Charitable Society. She'd shown up the day after the funeral with papers and plans talking about what was best for the children, while never once asking what the children wanted. We have to do something, Tommy hissed. Wait. Emma watched Silas carefully. Something in his posture had changed. His shoulders were rigid, his stance wide like a man preparing for battle. Mrs. Peterson, Silas said slowly, I think you should leave my property. Mr. Morgan, I am trying to help. Did I ask for your help? Well, no, but did those children ask for your help? Mrs. Peterson's face flushed. They're orphans. They don't know what's best for them. Maybe not. Silas stepped closer, his shadow falling over the smaller woman. But I'm pretty sure being torn apart from each other ain't it. You can't possibly be suggesting you intend to keep them. I ain't suggesting nothing. I'm telling you to get off my land before I lose my patience. Mrs. Peterson clutched her folder tighter. This isn't over, Mr. Morgan. The law is on the side of proper care for orphaned children. You can't just take them in like stray dogs. Watch me. The words hung in the air. Emma's breath stopped. Did he just say? Did he mean? Mrs. Peterson stared at Silas for a long moment. Her mouth opened and closed. Finally, she turned on her heel and marched toward her waiting buggy. You'll hear from the territorial authorities, she called over her shoulder. Mark my words. Silas didn't move until her buggy disappeared down the road. Then his shoulders sagged slightly like a man who'd just fought a battle he didn't expect. Emma pushed open the barn door. Silas turned sharply. When he saw her standing there, his expression closed down again. How much did you hear? He asked gruffly. Enough. Emma took a tentative step forward. Mr. Morgan, did you mean what you said about keeping us? A long pause. Silas looked at her, then past her to where Tommy, Lily, and Sammy had appeared in the doorway. 4 children with hungry eyes and ragged clothes and hope so fragile it could shatter with a word. I said one night. Silas finally spoke. I ain't changed my mind about that. Emma's heart sank. But, Silas removed his hat and ran a hand through his graying hair. That woman rubbed me wrong. I don't like people telling me what I can and can't do on my own land. So, what does that mean? For us. Silas put his hat back on. His jaw worked like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. It means maybe one night becomes 1 week, a trial. You work, you earn your keep, you stay out of my way. At the end of 7 days, we'll see. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. You won't regret this. Probably will. He started walking toward the house, then stopped. Breakfast is in 20 minutes. Tell that boy to wash his face, and somebody do something about the little one's feet. He disappeared inside. Tommy grabbed Emma's arm. Did that just happen? Are we staying? For a week. Emma couldn't stop the smile spreading across her face. We're staying for a week. Lily started crying, but these were happy tears. Sammy didn't quite understand, but he picked up on the joy around him and clapped his hands. Emma looked at the house where Silas Morgan had vanished. 1 week. 7 days to prove they could be useful. 7 days to make this bitter, broken man see them as something more than a burden. It wasn't much, but it was a chance. And Emma had learned something in the 3 worst weeks of her life. Sometimes a chance was all you needed. The kitchen was bigger than their whole cabin back home. Emma stood in the doorway, afraid to step inside. Everything gleamed: the iron stove, the copper pots hanging on hooks, the long wooden table that could seat 20. But beneath the order, she saw neglect, dust in corners, grease on the stove that hadn't been properly cleaned. A loneliness that hung in the air like old smoke. Buck appeared behind her. Boss ain't had a proper cook in years. Goes through 'em like water. They either can't handle his moods, or they try too hard to... He stopped. Try too hard to what? To be something they ain't. He had a wife once. Best cook in the territory, folks said. Nobody can replace her, but every woman who comes in here tries. Emma nodded slowly. I won't try to replace anybody. I'll just cook. That might be exactly what he needs. Buck showed her where things were. The pantry had good supplies: flour, sugar, salt, dried beans, cured meat. The root cellar held potatoes and onions. A chicken coop out back provided eggs. Men eat breakfast at 6, dinner at noon, supper at 6, Buck explained. That's 6 hands total now, plus the boss. The kids'll add 4 more mouths. Can you handle that? Yes, sir. You don't gotta call me sir, miss. Just Buck. Emma managed a small smile. Then you can call me Emma. Buck tipped his hat. Fair enough, Emma. Fair enough. When he left, Emma rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She started simple biscuits from scratch the way Mama taught her. She found the buttermilk slightly soured, but that would make the biscuits even better. She worked the dough with quick, light hands, the motion soothing in its familiarity. Lily appeared at her elbow. "Can I help?" "You can cut the biscuits." Emma handed her a tin cup. "Press down straight, don't twist." Lily concentrated hard on each cut, her tongue poking out in focus. For a moment she looked like a normal 7-year-old, not a child who'd lost everything. Tommy came in with Sammy. "That Buck fella said I should help with chores, but I ain't leaving you alone." "I'm fine, Tommy. Go, show Mr. Morgan we can work." Tommy hesitated. "What if he's mean to you while I'm gone?" "Then I'll handle it." Emma met his eyes firmly. "We have to show him we're worth keeping. That means everybody does their part." Tommy still looked uncertain, but he nodded. "Come on, Sammy. Let's go see the horses." Sammy's eyes lit up. "Horses? Big ones." They disappeared, and Emma allowed herself a small breath of relief. She needed Tommy to stay calm. His anger, while justified, could ruin everything. The biscuits went in the oven. Emma started on eggs, scrambling them with the last of the dried herbs she'd found in the pantry. She fried thick slices of cured ham. She found coffee beans and ground them fresh. By the time the ranch hands arrived for breakfast, the kitchen smelled like home. The men filed in, rough men with weathered faces and calloused hands. They stopped when they saw the spread on the table. Golden biscuits, fluffy eggs, sizzling ham, strong coffee. "Well, I'll be," muttered one man. "Ain't seen a breakfast like this since—" Another stopped himself. They sat down cautiously, like they expected the food to disappear. When they finally tasted it, Emma saw their faces change. Suspicion melting into surprise. Surprise warming into appreciation. "Miss," said an older hand with a gray mustache, "these biscuits are a revelation." "Thank you." Emma kept her voice calm, even though her heart was racing. "There's more if you want." "If she cooks like this every day," said a younger man, "I'll work twice as hard. Then I'll cook like this every day." The men laughed, and for the first time since arriving, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, this could work. She prepared a special tray for Silas. The best biscuits, extra butter. Coffee exactly how Buck said he liked it, black and strong enough to stand a spoon in. Buck took the tray to Silas's study. Emma waited, and waited. When Buck returned, his face was unreadable. "Boss ate everything. And nothing. He don't say much, but eating everything, that's his version of a compliment." Emma let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 1 meal down. 20 more to go this week. She could do this. She had to. That evening, after the supper dishes were washed and the kitchen cleaned, Emma sat on the back steps watching the sun sink below the mountains. The day had been exhausting. She'd cooked 3 meals, washed more dishes than she could count, and managed to keep Lily occupied and Sammy out of trouble while Tommy helped Buck with fence repairs. Her hands were raw. Her back ached. But she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Purpose. "You should be sleeping." Emma jumped. Silas Morgan stood a few feet away, appearing out of nowhere like a ghost. How did such a big man move so quietly? "Couldn't sleep yet," Emma said. "Too much on my mind." Silas didn't respond. He just stood there looking at the same sunset she'd been watching. "The food today," he finally said. "It was good." "Thank you, sir." "Don't need flattery, just stating fact." "I wasn't flattering, I was thanking." A hint of something crossed Silas's face. Not quite a smile, but close. "Your mother teach you to cook?" Emma's chest tightened. "Yes, sir. She said every woman should know how to feed the people she loves." "Smart woman." "She was." Emma paused. "Buck told me about your family. I'm sorry." Silas went rigid. "Buck talks too much." "He was trying to help us understand." Why you're... She searched for the right word. Why you're the way you are. And what way is that? Careful. With people. With feeling things. Silas was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I had a daughter about your age. Her name was Grace. She used to sit on these same steps watching the same sunset. Said the colors were God painting the sky just for her. Emma's throat closed up. After she passed, I couldn't sit here no more. Couldn't look at the sunset without seeing her face. Silas's hands clenched at his sides. It's been 8 years, and some days it still hurts like it was yesterday. It doesn't stop hurting, Emma whispered. The missing them. I know it hasn't been long for me, but I already know it won't stop. No, it won't. Silas looked at her, then really looked at her. But it changes. Becomes something you carry instead of something that crushes you. Takes time, though. Lots of time. They stood in silence, two people who understood loss in ways words couldn't capture. Mr. Morgan, Emma said finally. I know you don't want us here. I know we remind you of things you'd rather forget. But I need you to know I'm going to do everything I can to earn our place. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I'll make sure my siblings don't bother you. Girl. Silas's voice was firm but not unkind. Stop. Emma stopped. You don't gotta make promises you might not be able to keep. Just do what you're doing. Cook. Keep those young ones in line. We'll see what happens at the end of the week. It wasn't much, but from this man, it felt like a gift. Yes, sir. Silas turned to go, then paused. That table in your barn. The leg's uneven. I'll fix it tomorrow. Before Emma could respond, he was gone, swallowed by the growing dark. She sat there until the stars came out, thinking about pain and purpose, and the strange ways life could surprise you. Inside the barn, her siblings slept peacefully, unaware of the battle she was fighting for their future. But Emma knew, and she would not lose. The rooster hadn't crowed yet when Emma slipped out of the barn. 3 days had passed since Silas Morgan gave them their chance. 3 days of cooking, cleaning, working until her hands cracked and bled. 3 days of watching every expression on that man's face for any sign of what he was thinking. She still couldn't read him. The kitchen was dark when she entered. Emma lit the stove by feel her movements automatic now. She'd memorized where everything was. The flour bin, the salt cellar, the cast iron skillet that hung on the third hook from the left. She was cracking eggs into a bowl when she heard footsteps behind her. You're up early. Emma spun around. Silas stood in the doorway, his hair still mussed from sleep, his shirt half-buttoned. I wanted to get a head start, sir. It ain't even 5 yet. Best biscuits take time. Silas watched her for a moment. Then he moved to the coffee pot and poured himself a cup from yesterday's cold dregs. That's old, Emma said. I'll make fresh. Don't bother yourself. It's no bother. She took the cup from his hand before she could think better of it. Their fingers brushed. Silas pulled back like he'd touched a hot stove. Emma busied herself with the coffee, her cheeks warm. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. It's fine. His voice was gruff. Just surprised me is all. They stood in awkward silence while the coffee brewed. Emma focused on her biscuit dough, working it with more force than necessary. The boy, Silas said finally. Tommy. He's got a temper. Emma's hands stilled. He's been through a lot. We've all been through a lot. Don't mean we get to take it out on others. Did he do something wrong? Yesterday. Snapped at Buck when he was shown how to mend fence. Said he didn't need some old man telling him what to do. Emma closed her eyes. Tommy. Always so angry. Always so ready to fight. I'll talk to him. See that you do. Silas took his fresh coffee and headed for the door. Then he stopped. He's got potential, though. Strong back. Quick learner when he ain't being stubborn. It was the closest thing to a compliment Emma had heard from him. Thank you for telling me. Silas nodded once and disappeared into the gray morning light. Emma found Tommy behind the chicken coop an hour later, throwing rocks at a fence post with violent accuracy. You want to tell me what happened with Buck? Tommy's arm froze mid-throw. He told on me, Mr. Morgan did. Great. Tommy hurled the rock so hard it cracked the post. So now the boss thinks I'm trouble. Perfect. Are you trouble? Maybe I am. Tommy grabbed another rock. Maybe that's just who I am now, Emma. The angry orphan kid nobody wants. Emma caught his arm before he could throw. That is not who you are. How do you know? Because I know you, Thomas James Holloway. She used his full name deliberately. I know the boy who carried Sammy on his back for 10 miles when he was too tired to walk. I know the boy who gave Lily his last bite of food 3 nights in a row. I know the boy who dug our parents' graves alone because you didn't want me to have to do it. Tommy's face crumpled. For a moment, he wasn't an angry almost man. He was just a scared 10-year-old who missed his mama. I'm trying, Emma. I really am. But sometimes it gets so big inside me. The mad. I can't make it stop. Emma pulled him close. He resisted for a second, then collapsed against her, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I know, Tommy. I know. But we have to keep it together. Just 4 more days. Can you do that for me? He nodded against her shoulder. Promise me you'll apologize to Buck. I promise. And promise me you'll try. Really try. Tommy pulled back, wiping his face with his sleeve. I'll try. Emma watched him walk toward the barn, his steps heavy with the weight he carried. 10 years old and already carrying the burden of a man. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. But fair didn't matter anymore. Survival did. The heat of summer pressed down on the ranch like a heavy blanket. By midday, even the chickens sought shade. Emma worked through it, sweat dripping into her eyes, her dress sticking to her back. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, clutching a handful of wildflowers. Purple and yellow and white all tangled together with stems of varying lengths. I picked these for the table. Emma's heart clenched. Mama used to do that. Every Sunday, fresh flowers on the table no matter how poor they were. They're beautiful, sweetheart. Find a jar to put them in. Lily's face lit up. She rummaged through the cupboards until she found a mason jar, then carefully arranged her flowers with the concentration of an artist. Emma, can I take some to the pretty place? What pretty place? Behind the big tree, where the stones are. Buck showed me yesterday. Emma froze. The stones, the graves. Lily, I don't think... Please, the stones looked lonely. I think they need flowers too. How did a 7-year-old see loneliness in gravestones? Emma knelt down to her sister's level. Those stones are special to Mr. Morgan. They're for his family. His family's in heaven. Yes. Lily nodded solemnly. Like Mama and Papa. Yes, like Mama and Papa. Then they probably know each other. Lily's logic was simple and heartbreaking. I want to leave flowers for them, so they don't feel forgotten. Emma couldn't say no. Not to that face. Not to that innocent kindness. All right. But be respectful. And come right back. Lily skipped out the door, flowers clutched to her chest like treasure. Emma watched her go, praying she hadn't just made a terrible mistake. Silas saw the girl before she saw him. He'd come to the graves like he did most afternoons, standing just out of sight behind the oak tree. He never got too close anymore. Couldn't bear to read the names carved in stone. Martha. William. Grace. His whole world reduced to 3 slabs of granite. But today, someone was already there. The little one. Lily. She knelt in front of the graves, carefully laying wildflowers at the base of each stone. Silas should stop her. Should tell her to leave. These graves were private, sacred, but he couldn't move, couldn't speak. Lily began talking, her voice high and clear in the summer air. "Hello, I'm Lily. I don't know your names, but Buck said you were Mr. Morgan's family. My family's in heaven too. Mama and Papa. They went there 3 weeks ago." Silas's throat closed up. "I miss them real bad, especially at night. Sammy still cries sometimes, but Emma holds him until he stops. She's real good at that. She holds all of us." The girl placed a purple flower on the smallest grave. Grace's grave. "I bet you were a nice girl. Mr. Morgan looks real sad when he sees us. Emma says it's because we remind him of you. I hope that doesn't make him too sad. We don't mean to." Silas pressed his palm against the oak tree, steadying himself. "My mama's probably up there with your mama. They're probably friends now. Mama always made friends real easy. She said it was because she listened more than she talked. I try to do that too, but sometimes I forget and talk too much." A bitter laugh escaped Silas. The girl had no idea how much she sounded like Grace at that age. The same innocent chatter, the same open heart. "Can you tell your mama to take care of my mama, and your papa to take care of my papa? I worry about them being alone up there. I know they have God and all, but it's nice to have friends too." Lily pressed her hands together like she was praying. "And can you tell Mr. Morgan it's okay? We won't try to take your place. We know we're not his real family. But maybe we could be. Something Emma really wants to stay. She's working so hard, harder than she thinks I notice. Her hands are all red and hurt-looking, but she won't complain." Silas looked down at his own hands, calloused, scarred, hands that had buried his children. "I hope you don't mind the flowers. Emma says flowers make everything a little better, even the sad things." Lily stood up, brushed off her knees, and gave a little wave to the gravestones. "Bye for now. I'll come back tomorrow if Mr. Morgan doesn't send us away." She skipped off toward the house, leaving Silas alone with his dead and her wildflowers. He stood there for a long time. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows shifted. Finally, he walked to the graves. 3 stones, 3 names, 3 pieces of his heart buried in the ground. He knelt and touched the flowers Lily had left. Fresh, bright, alive. "Martha," he whispered to his wife's stone. "I don't know what to do. These children, they're breaking through walls I built to survive. That little girl just talked to you like you were old friends, and the older one, Emma, she cooks like." He couldn't finish. The stone offered no answers. It never did. 8 years I've kept everyone out. 8 years of being alone, because alone couldn't hurt me. But these 4, they're already in, and I don't know how to get them out." A bird sang somewhere in the branches above. Martha had loved birds, said they were heaven's messengers. "What would you tell me to do if you were here?" The wind rustled through the leaves. For a moment, just a moment, it sounded almost like a whisper. "Let them stay." Silas stood up slowly. His knees ached, his heart ached worse. He looked toward the house where smoke rose from the kitchen chimney, where 4 orphans were fighting to belong. "1 week," he said to the empty graves. "I said 1 week." But already he knew it wouldn't be enough. Supper that night was quiet. Emma had made fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy. The ranch hands ate with enthusiasm, their compliments filling the room. But Silas sat at the head of the table without speaking, his eyes distant, his food barely touched. Emma watched him with growing worry. Had something happened? Had one of her siblings done something wrong? After the men cleared out, she began collecting plates. Silas remained seated. "Sir, is everything all right?" Silas looked at her like he'd forgotten she was there. "What?" "Oh, yes. Fine. You didn't eat much. Wasn't hungry?" Emma hesitated. Every instinct told her to leave it alone. Don't push. Don't pry. Stay small and useful and invisible. But she couldn't help herself. Mr. Morgan, if one of us did something to upset you, I'd rather know now so I can fix it. Silas's jaw tightened. Nobody did nothing wrong. Then why? Girl. His voice was sharp. I said it's fine. Emma stepped back, stung. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. She turned to the dishes, blinking back unexpected tears. Stupid. She was stupid to think she could read this man. Stupid to think cooking and cleaning would be enough. Emma. She didn't turn around. Emma, look at me. Slowly, she faced him. Silas's expression had changed. The hardness was still there, but underneath it something else. Something that looked almost like pain. The little one, Lily. She was at the graves today. Emma's stomach dropped. I'm so sorry. She wanted to leave flowers. I told her to be respectful. I should have. She talked to them. What? My family. She talked to them like they were real people. Told them about your mama and papa. Asked them to be friends up in heaven. Emma didn't know what to say. Nobody's visited those graves but me in 8 years, Silas continued. The townsfolk, they give 'em a wide berth, like death is catching. But that little girl just walked up and had a conversation. I'll tell her not to do it again. No. The word came out rough. Don't. Emma stared at him. The flowers, Silas said quietly. They looked nice. Martha would have liked them. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The week ain't over yet. You got 4 more days to prove yourselves. He walked out before Emma could respond. But as she finished the dishes, she realized something had shifted. The wall between them had cracked. Just a little. Just enough to let a sliver of light through. 4 more days. She would make them count. Tommy apologized to Buck the next morning. Emma watched from the kitchen window, her hands deep in bread dough. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw Buck's face soften. Saw him clap Tommy on the shoulder. Saw her brother nod and pick up a fence rail with new determination. Relief flooded through her. One crisis averted. But the day brought new challenges. Around noon, Sammy wandered away from the barn while Emma was cooking. She didn't notice until Lily came running in breathless. Emma, Sammy's gone. Emma's heart stopped. What do you mean gone? He was playing in the hay and then he wasn't. Emma dropped everything and ran. She found Buck first. Have you seen Sammy? Not since breakfast, miss. He's missing. He wandered off. Buck's face went serious. I'll get the boys searching. Within minutes, a dozen people were fanning out across the ranch. Emma ran from building to building, calling Sammy's name until her voice cracked. Where would a 4-year-old go? What would catch his attention? Horses. Sammy loved the horses. Emma sprinted toward the main stable, her lungs burning. She burst through the doors and stopped dead. Silas Morgan sat on a hay bale in the corner. Sammy was curled in his lap, fast asleep. He wandered in about an hour ago, Silas said quietly. Found him trying to pet the horses. Big Red nearly scared him half to death with a sneeze. Emma's legs gave out. She sank onto a nearby bale, her whole body shaking with relief. I was so scared. I thought, I know what you thought. Silas looked down at the sleeping child. I should have sent someone to tell you. Didn't think about it. Why didn't you just bring him back? Silas was quiet for a moment. He was crying. Said he wanted his mama. I told him his mama wasn't here, but he could sit with me if he wanted. A pause. He stopped crying after a while. Then he fell asleep. Emma stared at this hard man holding her baby brother so gently. Mr. Morgan. Don't. His voice was rough. Don't make it into something it ain't. The boy was upset. I happened to be here. That's all. But Emma saw his hand resting on Sammy's back. Protective. Tender. The hand of a man who remembered how to hold a child even after 8 years of trying to forget. Thank you, she said simply. Silas nodded once. You should take him. Get back to your cooking. Emma rose and carefully lifted Sammy from Silas's lap. The boy stirred but didn't wake his thumb, finding his mouth automatically. As she turned to leave, Silas spoke again. "Emma." She looked back. "The weekend's tomorrow. Come to my study after supper. We'll talk." Her heart hammered. "Yes, sir." She walked out with Sammy in her arms and hope like a flame in her chest. Tomorrow would decide everything. The final day of the trial dawned bright and merciless. Emma cooked breakfast like her life depended on it. Because it did. She made buttermilk pancakes, golden as sunshine. She fried bacon until it crackled. She whipped eggs with cream and a touch of cheese. The ranch hands ate in reverent silence. "Miss Emma," said the gray-mustached hand, "if the boss sends you away, I'm going with you." The others laughed, but Emma heard the truth beneath the joke. They wanted her to stay. These rough men who'd been strangers a week ago, they wanted her to stay. But it wasn't their decision. All day she worked and waited, cooked and cleaned, and watched the clock on the wall move with agonizing slowness. Tommy and Lily helped where they could. Sammy followed Buck around like a duckling following its mother. Supper was roast beef with potatoes and gravy. Emma put everything she had into it, every technique Mama taught her, every bit of love she could pour into food. Silas ate every bite. When the plates were cleared and the hands had gone, Emma found herself walking toward Silas's study on trembling legs. Tommy grabbed her arm before she reached the door. "I'm coming with you." "No, Tommy. This is between me and Mr. Morgan." "But take care of Lily and Sammy. I'll come find you after." Tommy's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Emma watched him walk back toward the barn, her fierce protector, her angry guardian. Then she turned and knocked on the study door. "Come in." Silas sat behind a massive wooden desk covered in papers. He gestured to a chair across from him. Emma sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Silas leaned back in his chair and fixed her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "The week's up." "Yes, sir." "You want to know if you're staying?" Emma couldn't speak. She just nodded. Silas steepled his fingers. "The food's been good, better than good. The men work harder when they're fed well. That has value." Emma held her breath. "The boy's got potential. Buck says he's learning fast when he ain't letting his temper get the best of him. And the little ones—" Silas paused. "They don't cause much trouble." "We can do more," Emma said quickly. "Whatever you need. Cleaning, mending, gardening. Girl, let me finish." Emma fell silent. Silas stood and walked to the window. His back was to her, his shoulders rigid. 8 years ago, I buried my whole world. I swore I'd never let anyone in again. Too much risk. Too much pain. His voice dropped. Then 4 hungry children showed up at my gate, and everything I built started crumbling. Emma's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I watched you this week, Emma Holloway. I watched you cook and clean and hold your siblings together through pure force of will. I watched you carry a weight no 12-year-old should have to carry." He turned to face her. "And I watched that little girl leave flowers on my family's graves like it was the most natural thing in the world." A tear slipped down Emma's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "I ain't a good man," Silas said. "I'm broken and bitter, and I've forgotten how to be kind. But even I can see what's in front of me." He walked back to the desk and sat down heavily. "You can stay. All of you. Not as temporary help, but permanent. This ranch could use a cook, and I suppose—" He cleared his throat. "I suppose I could use the company." Emma couldn't contain the sob that broke from her chest. "Really? You mean it?" "I don't say things I don't mean." She wanted to run around the desk and hug him. She wanted to fall on her knees and thank God. She wanted to scream with joy. But she was Emma Holloway, and she had learned to control herself. "Thank you, Mr. Morgan. You won't regret this." "Probably will." But there was something in his eyes that looked almost like warmth. Now go tell those siblings of yours. They've been staring at this window for the past hour." Emma laughed through her tears. Of course they had. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Mr. Morgan." "What?" "What you said before about being broken and bitter. I don't think that's true." She met his eyes. "I think you're just sad. And sad can get better." She left before he could respond, but she heard the sound behind her. A sound like a man finally letting himself breathe. 2 weeks passed like a dream Emma was afraid to wake from. She fell into a rhythm she hadn't known since before her parents died. Rise before dawn, cook breakfast, clean the kitchen, prepare dinner, wash dishes, cook supper, fall into bed exhausted, repeat. But it was good exhaustion, the kind that came from purpose. The ranch hands treated her like family now. They brought her extra firewood without being asked. They complimented her cooking until her cheeks hurt from smiling. They looked out for her siblings like protective uncles. And Silas. Silas was changing too. Emma noticed it in small ways. He lingered longer at meals. He nodded when she served him instead of grunting. Once she caught him almost smiling at something Lily said. Almost. But it was progress. More than she'd dared hope for. On Monday of the 3rd week, Silas appeared in the kitchen doorway while Emma was kneading bread. "Where's the boy?" "Tommy. He's helping Buck with the cattle count." Silas nodded. "Tell him to meet me at the corral after dinner. Got something to show him." He left before Emma could ask questions. At noon, she passed the message to Tommy. His face went through a dozen emotions in 3 seconds. "What's he want with me?" "I don't know. He didn't say. Probably wants to yell at me for something." Tommy. What? The man barely talks to me. When he does, it's to tell me I'm doing something wrong." Emma put her hands on his shoulders. "Maybe this is different. Give him a chance." Tommy's jaw tightened, but he nodded. After the dishes were cleared, Emma watched from the kitchen window as Tommy walked toward the corral. Silas was already there, standing beside a chestnut mare. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could see Tommy's body language shift from defensive to confused to something that looked almost like hope. Silas handed him the reins. Tommy's eyes went wide. They spent the next hour in that corral. Emma kept finding excuses to look out the window. She saw Tommy climb onto the horse, saw him fall off twice, saw Silas help him back up each time without a word of criticism. By the time they finished, Tommy was trotting around the corral like he'd been born in the saddle. He burst into the kitchen an hour later, his face flushed with excitement. "Emma, did you see Mr. Morgan taught me to ride? Really ride?" Emma grinned. "I saw. He said I'm a natural, said I have good hands, said his boy William used to ride that same mare." Emma's grin faded slightly. "He told you about William?" "A little. Just that he was about my age when he learned, and that he would have liked me." Tommy's voice cracked on the last word. "I never had nobody say their dead kid would have liked me, Emma. It felt, I don't know, it felt important." Emma pulled him into a hug. "It is important, Tommy. It means he's letting you in." "You think so?" "I know so." That night at supper, Silas caught Emma's eye across the table. He gave her a single nod. "Thank you," she mouthed. He looked away, but she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. The summer heat grew fiercer as June bled into July. Emma learned to cook around it. Lighter meals at midday, cold buttermilk with supper, pies made early in the morning before the kitchen became unbearable. She also learned something else. Silas Morgan hadn't eaten a proper meal in years before she arrived. Buck let it slip one evening while helping her carry water from the well. "Used to live on hardtack and jerky, miss. Sometimes went days without eating anything at all. After Martha passed, I think food just reminded him too much of her." "But he eats now." "That's what I'm saying." Buck set down his bucket and fixed her with serious eyes. You done something nobody else could do in 8 years. You made that man want to live again. Emma didn't know what to say. Don't let it go to your head, Buck added with a wink. He's still ornery as a mule with a toothache. Emma laughed despite herself. But later that night, lying in the small room Silas had given her in the house, she thought about what Buck said. Made him want to live again. Was that what she was doing? She'd been so focused on survival, on keeping her siblings safe, that she hadn't thought about what she might be giving in return. Maybe that's what family was. Not just taking care of each other, but making each other want to be taken care of. She fell asleep wondering if Silas felt the same way about them. Lily discovered the swimming hole on a scorching Tuesday afternoon. She came running into the kitchen, her braids flying behind her, her face bright with excitement. Emma Buck showed me the most beautiful place. There's a creek with deep water and trees all around, and he said we could swim there. Slow down, sweetheart. What creek? The one behind the north pasture. Buck said, Mr. Morgan's children used to swim there every summer. He said it's been empty for 8 years, but maybe we could use it again. Emma felt a familiar worry twist in her stomach. Everything on this ranch connected back to Silas's loss. The kitchen, the graves, now a swimming hole. I don't know, Lily. We should ask Mr. Morgan first. I already did. Emma blinked. You did? He was in the barn, and I asked him real polite like you taught me, and he said... Lily paused for dramatic effect. He said yes. He said yes. Well, Lily scrunched up her nose. He said, I suppose if you must. But that's almost the same thing, right? Emma couldn't help but laugh. Yes, I suppose it is. That evening, she took all 3 siblings to the swimming hole, while supper simmered on the stove. Tommy cannonballed into the water with a whoop. Lily waded in carefully, squealing at the cold. Sammy sat on the bank, letting the water tickle his toes, not quite brave enough to go deeper. Emma sat beside him, watching her siblings play. For the first time in months, they looked like children. Not refugees, not orphans, just kids splashing in a creek on a hot summer day. You're not swimming. Emma jumped. Silas stood a few feet away, his hat low over his eyes. Someone has to watch Sammy. Silas moved closer. Not quite joining them, but not leaving either. Used to bring my 2 here every summer. William would dive off that rock over there. He pointed to a large boulder jutting over the water. Grace preferred to float on her back and look at clouds. Said she was searching for angels. Emma's throat tightened. It's a beautiful spot. Martha picked it. Said every child needed a place to be wild and free. This was theirs. Are you sure it's okay that we use it? Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that made Emma's breath catch. He sat down beside her. Places don't belong to the dead, Miss Emma. They belong to the living, and the living might as well enjoy them. They sat in silence, watching the children play. Sammy inched closer to the water, then closer still. Before Emma could react, Silas reached over and steadied him. Easy there, little man. Water's deeper than it looks. Sammy looked up at Silas with those big, serious eyes. Then he did something he hadn't done with anyone since their parents died. He climbed into Silas's lap. Silas froze. Emma held her breath. Sammy settled in like it was the most natural thing in the world, his thumb finding his mouth, his head resting against Silas's chest. I think he likes you, Emma whispered. Silas's jaw worked. His hands hovered awkwardly for a moment before settling on Sammy's back. Don't know why he would, he said gruffly. Barely said 2 words to him. Maybe that's what he likes. You don't expect anything from him. Silas looked down at the small boy in his lap. Something in his face shifted, softened, broke just a little. He's so small. He's 4. William was 4 once. Silas's voice was barely audible. Feels like yesterday, and 100 years ago at the same time. Emma didn't speak. Some moments didn't need words. They sat there until the sun started to set, the children playing in the water, Sammy sleeping in the arms of a man who'd forgotten how to hold anything but grief. The peaceful days couldn't last forever. Emma knew that. She just didn't expect the storm to arrive with a black buggy and a woman's sharp voice. It was a Thursday morning, 3 weeks and 4 days since they'd arrived. Emma was rolling out pie crust when she heard horses approaching. She wiped her hands and went to the window. Her blood turned to ice. Ruth Peterson stepped down from the buggy, her dark dress like a thundercloud against the bright summer day. Behind her came the sheriff, his badge glinting in the sunlight. "Tommy!" Emma called, keeping her voice steady. "Go find Mr. Morgan, now." Tommy was out the door before she finished speaking. Emma walked onto the porch, placing herself between the visitors and the kitchen where Lily and Sammy played. "Mrs. Peterson, Sheriff, can I help you?" Ruth's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Where's Mr. Morgan, child?" "He'll be here shortly." "We've come on official business. The Territorial Board has reviewed your case." Emma's stomach dropped. "What case?" "The case of 4 minor children living with an unmarried man without proper supervision or legal guardianship." Ruth's voice dripped with false concern. "It's our duty to ensure their welfare. We're fine, more than fine. That's not for you to decide." Silas appeared around the corner of the house, Tommy at his heels. His face was set in hard lines. "Mrs. Peterson, you're on my property again." "Mr. Morgan, I come with the full authority of the Territorial Board." Ruth held up a folded paper. "This is an order requiring the children to appear before Judge Harmon in town next week. Their living situation will be evaluated." Silas took the paper but didn't open it. "Evaluated by who?" "By proper authorities. People who can determine what's best for 4 orphaned children." "And you don't think I can determine that? You're a single man, Mr. Morgan, a recluse who hasn't participated in community life for 8 years. You have no wife, no family, no credentials to care for children." Ruth's voice hardened. "The board has serious concerns." Emma stepped forward. "We're happy here. We don't want to leave. Children rarely know what's best for them." Ruth dismissed her with a wave. "The Denver Foundling Home has agreed to take all 4 of you. You'll receive education, religious instruction, and proper moral guidance." "We'll be separated," Emma said. "Boys and girls in different buildings. You said so yourself. Structure and discipline are necessary for proper development." Silas moved to stand beside Emma. His presence was solid, reassuring. "These children aren't going anywhere, Mrs. Peterson. They live here now. They work here. This is their home." "That's not your decision to make." "The hell it isn't." The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Morgan, maybe we should all calm down and discuss this reasonably." "There's nothing to discuss." Silas stepped forward, his voice dropping to that dangerous low register Emma had heard only once before. "Those children came to me half-starved and exhausted. The town council wanted to ship them off like cattle. I took them in. I fed them. I gave them beds and work and a place to belong. That's more than anyone else in this territory has done." Ruth's face flushed. "Proper institutions. Your proper institutions would rip this family apart." Silas's voice rose. 4 children who've already lost their parents. And you want to take away the only thing they have left. Each other. "Mr. Morgan, get off my land. We have legal authority. I said get off my land." Silas's roar echoed across the yard. "You want to take these children, you'll have to go through me first, through my men, through every person on this ranch who's watched these kids work and grow and heal. We won't let you destroy them." Ruth's composure cracked. For a moment, real fear flickered in her eyes. The sheriff cleared his throat. "Mr. Morgan, the hearing is next Thursday, 9 o'clock at the courthouse. If you don't appear, the board will rule in absentia." He took Ruth's arm and guided her back toward the buggy. She went, but not without a final look over her shoulder. This isn't over, Mr. Morgan. The law is on the side of proper care. The law can go to hell. The buggy pulled away, dust rising in its wake. Emma realized she was shaking. Silas turned to her. His face was still hard, but his eyes had changed. I won't let them take you. Any of you. Do you understand? Emma nodded, unable to speak. That woman's been trying to control this territory for years. She runs that church charity like a personal kingdom. Decides who's worthy and who isn't. His hands clenched into fists. She decided I wasn't worthy of sympathy when my family died because I wouldn't bow to her committee. Now she wants to prove she can take yours. What do? We fight. At that hearing, we show them what kind of home this is, what kind of life you have here. Silas paused. If they still want to take you after that, they'll have to drag you out by force. And I don't think even Ruth Peterson has the stomach for that. Tommy emerged from behind the porch railing, where he'd been listening. You'd really fight for us against the law and everything? Silas looked at the boy for a long moment. Son, I've lost one family. I ain't losing another. The words hung in the air. Emma saw Tommy's face crumble and rebuild in a single second, saw the walls he'd built since his parents died crack just a little more. I thought you didn't want us, Tommy whispered. I thought we were just temporary. Maybe you were at first, Silas's voice roughened. But not anymore. Not after watching you work. Not after seeing your sister care for this family like a grown woman. Not after... He stopped, swallowed hard. Not after holding that little boy while he slept and remembering what it felt like to be needed. Tommy moved forward, hesitated, then threw his arms around Silas's waist. Silas stood frozen for a heartbeat. Then his arms came up, wrapping around Tommy's shoulders, holding him tight. Emma pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Lily appeared in the doorway, Sammy beside her. Is the mean lady gone? She's gone, sweetheart. Is she coming back? Silas released Tommy and knelt to Lily's level. She might try, but I'm not going to let her take you away, I promise. Lily studied his face with those two wise eyes. You promise like real promises, like the kind you can't break. Like that kind. Lily nodded solemnly. Then she reached out and patted Silas's cheek. Okay. I believe you. Sammy toddled forward and wrapped his small arms around Silas's leg. Stay, he said. The first word he'd spoken directly to Silas. Emma watched as something in Silas Morgan broke open and spilled out. All the grief, all the walls, all the years of isolation, gone in the span of a single moment. He gathered all three children into his arms, this man who'd sworn never to let anyone close again, and he held them like they were the most precious things in the world. Because they were. Emma stood apart, watching her heart so full it ached. Silas looked up and met her eyes. You too, girl. Get over here. She hesitated. That's an order. Emma laughed through her tears and joined the embrace. 5 people standing in the yard of a lonely ranch, holding on to each other like the world might end if they let go. Maybe it would, but for now they were together, and together they would face whatever came next. The week before the hearing passed too quickly. Emma threw herself into preparing. She made the children practice speaking clearly. She rehearsed answers to questions Ruth Peterson might ask. She scrubbed every surface in the house until it gleamed. Silas handled things differently. He rode into town twice, meeting with people Emma didn't know. He came back tight-lipped but determined. Got some folks who'll speak for us, was all he said. People who remember what kind of man I was before. People who've seen what kind of home this is now. Buck organized the ranch hands. All 6 of them volunteered to attend the hearing. That Peterson woman thinks she runs this territory, said the gray-mustached hand whose name Emma had learned was Walt. About time someone reminded her she don't. The night before the hearing, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat on the back porch wrapped in a blanket, despite the summer warmth, watching the stars. Footsteps behind her. Mind if I join you? Silas sat down without waiting for an answer. He carried 2 cups of coffee, handing her one. Thank you. They sat in silence for a while, watching the night sky. You nervous? Silas finally asked. Terrified. Me too. Emma looked at him in surprise. You don't seem terrified. Learned to hide it a long time ago. He took a sip of coffee. But inside I'm shaking like a leaf. You've done so much for us. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that. Don't talk like that. Like what? Like we've already lost. Silas turned to face her. We haven't lost anything yet, and we won't if I have anything to say about it. But what if the judge sides with Mrs. Peterson? What if he decides we belong in an institution? Then we'll appeal. Fight it in higher courts, make so much noise that nobody can ignore us. That could take months, years. I've got time. Silas's voice softened. And I've got something worth fighting for now. First time in 8 years I can say that. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Why? Why do you care so much? We're nothing to you. Just strangers who showed up at your gate. Silas was quiet for a long moment. You remember what Lily said at the graves about your mama and my Martha being friends in heaven? Emma nodded. I think she was right. I think maybe they looked down and saw 2 broken families. One that lost its parents. One that lost its children. And they figured why not put them together? See if something good could come from all that pain? Emma's tears spilled over. I don't know if I believe in heaven or fate or any of that. Silas continued. But I know what I feel. And I feel like you 4 were supposed to find me. Like maybe this was always meant to be. He reached over and took her hand. His palm was rough and calloused, but his grip was gentle. Whatever happens tomorrow, Emma Grace Holloway, you and your siblings have a home here. Now and forever. No judge or committee or church lady can change that. Not as long as I'm breathing. Emma squeezed his hand. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Silas, she blinked. What? My name's Silas. Seems like you've earned the right to use it. Emma smiled through her tears. Thank you, Silas. They sat there until dawn broke over the mountains, 2 people who'd lost everything, finding something worth keeping in each other. Tomorrow would bring the fight of their lives. But tonight, they had peace, and sometimes peace was enough. The courthouse smelled like old wood and older judgments. Emma sat in the front row, her siblings pressed close on either side. Tommy's jaw was set hard. Lily clutched Emma's hand so tight her fingers went numb. Sammy sat in her lap unusually still, as if he sensed the gravity of the moment. Behind them, Silas stood with Buck and the ranch hands. 6 weathered men in their Sunday best, looking uncomfortable but determined. Ruth Peterson sat across the aisle with the sheriff and 2 men in dark suits. The territorial board representatives Emma guessed. They hadn't looked at her once since entering. Judge Harmon emerged from his chambers, a thin man with spectacles and a permanent frown. He settled behind his bench and shuffled papers. This hearing concerns the welfare of 4 minor children currently residing with Mr. Silas Morgan of Morgan Valley Ranch. His voice was flat procedural. Mrs. Peterson, you may present your concerns. Ruth stood smoothing her skirt with practiced hands. Your Honor, the Territorial Ladies Charitable Society has grave concerns about the living situation of these orphaned children. They reside with an unmarried man who has no legal guardianship, no familial connection, and frankly no qualifications to raise children. She paused for effect. Mr. Morgan is a known recluse who has withdrawn from community life for 8 years. He fired most of his ranch hands. He refuses to attend church services. He barely speaks to his neighbors. Ruth's voice dripped with false sympathy. While his generosity in taking in these children is noted, we must ask ourselves, is this truly the best environment for 4 young souls? Judge Harmon made a note. Mr. Morgan, do you wish to respond? Silas stepped forward. His voice was steady. Mrs. Peterson's got her facts straight mostly. I did withdraw from the community. I did stop going to church. And yes, I kept to myself for 8 years. He paused. But she left out why. Your Honor, his personal tragedies are not relevant. I lost my wife and 2 children to scarlet fever. Silas continued, ignoring Ruth. All 3 of them in 1 week. After that, I didn't see much point in community suppers and Sunday socials. I was trying to survive. The courtroom fell silent. These children showed up at my gate a month ago, half-starved, exhausted, desperate. The same town council that's trying to take them away had already decided to ship them off to Denver like unwanted livestock. Silas's voice hardened. I gave them a chance. They proved themselves worth keeping. That's all there is to it. Ruth rose again. Your Honor, emotional appeals aside, the fact remains that these children need proper care. The Denver Foundling Home offers education, religious instruction, and moral guidance. Mr. Morgan offers, what exactly kitchen work and barn chores? I offer a home, Silas said simply. A family. You are not their family. Family ain't just blood, ma'am. It's choice. And I choose them. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. She squeezed Lily's hand tighter. Judge Harmon removed his spectacles and polished them slowly. I'd like to hear from others who can speak to the children's welfare. Mr. Morgan, do you have witnesses? I do, Your Honor. Buck stepped forward first. Name's Buck McAllister. Been foreman at Morgan Ranch for 15 years. I was there before Mrs. Morgan and the children passed, and I've been there every day since. He cleared his throat. I watched Silas Morgan bury his family. Watched him close off from the world because feeling anything hurt too much. For 8 years, that man was just going through the motions of living. Buck's voice strengthened. Then these 4 children arrived. And I watched something change. Watched him start eating real meals again. Watched him laugh for the first time in near a decade. Watched him teach young Tommy to ride like he used to teach William. Ruth shifted uncomfortably. Those children didn't just find a home, Buck continued. They gave one back to a man who'd forgotten what home meant. That's not something you can put in a charity report, ma'am, but it's the truth. One by one, the ranch hands spoke. Walt talked about Emma's cooking and how it had changed the spirit of the whole ranch. Another man, Jesse, described watching Silas carry Sammy around on his shoulders like he used to do with his own son. A third spoke about Lily's flowers on the graves and how Silas had started visiting them again after years of staying away. With each testimony, Ruth's expression grew tighter. Finally, Judge Harmon turned to Emma. Miss Holloway, I'd like to hear from you and your siblings. In your own words, how do you feel about staying at Morgan Ranch? Emma stood on shaking legs. Your Honor, 3 weeks before we came here, I watched my mother die. She made me promise to keep my siblings together, no matter what. Emma's voice wavered, but held. Every door we knocked on in town closed in our faces. Nobody wanted 4 orphan children with no money and no connections. We walked for 3 days with nothing but each other. She took a breath. Mr. Morgan didn't want us either at first, but he gave us a chance. 1 week to prove ourselves. We worked harder than we've ever worked in our lives, and somewhere along the way it stopped being about proving ourselves. It started being about... She struggled for the right words. About belonging. Your Honor, Ruth interrupted. The child is clearly coached. I am not coached. Emma's voice sharpened. I'm telling you the truth. For the first time since my parents died, I feel safe. My brother smiles again. My sister laughs again. My baby brother spoke his first words in weeks to Mr. Morgan. She turned to face Ruth directly. You want to send us to Denver where they'll split us apart. Put Tommy in one building and me in another. Take Sammy away from the only people who've made him feel safe since his mama died. Emma's eyes blazed. You call that proper care. I call it cruelty. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Judge Harmon raised his hand for silence. I'd like to hear from the other children as well. Tommy stood. His hands were shaking, but his voice came out strong. My pa taught me that a man's worth is measured by his work. Since we came to Morgan Ranch, I've worked every day. I've mended fences and counted cattle and learned to ride. Mr. Morgan taught me himself. Tommy's chin lifted. My pa would have been proud of what I'm becoming here. And I think he would have liked Mr. Morgan. They're the same kind of man. Hard outside, but good where it counts. Lily tugged on Emma's sleeve, wanting to speak. Your Honor, Emma said. My sister Lily would like to say something. The judge nodded, his expression softening slightly. Lily stood on the bench so she could be seen. Her voice was small, but clear. Mr. Morgan's family is in heaven with my mama and papa. I leave flowers for them so they don't get lonely. Mr. Morgan said it was okay. She paused, thinking. He's sad a lot like me. But when we're together, the sad gets smaller. That's what family does, right? Makes the sad smaller. Even Ruth Peterson had no response to that. Sammy squirmed in Emma's arms. He pointed at Silas and spoke the word that would crack open every heart in that courtroom. Papa. Silas made a sound like he'd been punched. The judge stared at the small boy, then at the man he was reaching for. Mr. Morgan, Judge Harmon said quietly. The child appears to have formed a significant attachment to you. He calls me that sometimes, Silas said, his voice rough. I've told him I'm not his pa, but he keeps saying it anyway. And how does that make you feel? Silas was silent for a long moment. It makes me feel like maybe I've been given a second chance, at something I thought was gone forever. The judge removed his spectacles again. When he put them back on, his expression had changed. I've heard enough testimony. I'll render my decision now. Emma's heart stopped. Mrs. Peterson raises valid concerns about propriety and procedure. Mr. Morgan is indeed an unmarried man with no legal standing as guardian. The judge paused. However, the law's primary concern is the welfare of the children, and everything I've heard today tells me these children are not just surviving at Morgan Ranch, they're thriving. Ruth opened her mouth to protest. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am troubled by Mrs. Peterson's insistence on sending these children to an institution that would separate siblings. The bond between these four is evident and should not be broken. He turned to Silas. Mr. Morgan, I am granting you temporary guardianship of these children, pending formal adoption proceedings. You will need to file the appropriate paperwork with the territorial office within 30 days. Emma couldn't breathe. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Lily screamed with joy and threw herself at Silas. Tommy followed, his tough exterior crumbling as he grabbed Silas's arm. Sammy reached out, and Silas lifted him without hesitation. Emma stood, frozen, tears streaming down her face. Silas looked at her over the heads of her siblings. Well, you gonna stand there all day? She ran to him. They stood in the middle of that dusty courtroom, 5 people tangled together, crying and laughing and holding on like they'd never let go. Ruth Peterson swept past them without a word, her face white with fury. Emma didn't care. They had won. They were staying. They were family. The celebration at the ranch lasted well into the evening. Buck broke out a bottle of whiskey he'd been saving for a special occasion. The ranch hands took turns toasting the children, their faces red with drink and happiness. Emma made the biggest dinner she'd ever cooked, and everyone ate until they couldn't move. Even Silas smiled. Really smiled. The kind of smile that transformed his whole face and made Emma see the man he must have been before grief hollowed him out. To the Holloways. Buck raised his glass. The best thing that ever happened to this ranch. To the Holloways, the men echoed. Silas raised his own glass. And to second chances, for all of us. Emma caught his eye across the table. Thank you, she mouthed. He nodded once, and that was enough. It was nearly midnight when Emma finally got her siblings to bed. Lily fell asleep mid-sentence, her face still flushed with excitement. Tommy tried to stay awake, but lost the battle within minutes. Sammy had been out for hours, exhausted by a day full of more emotion than his small body could handle. Emma tucked them in, kissed each forehead, and crept out to the porch. Silas was already there, staring at the sky. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much thinking." Emma sat beside him. "Good thinking or bad thinking?" "Both, I reckon." He was quiet for a moment. 30 days to file adoption papers. That's what the judge said. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No." The word came out fast and certain. "I'm just trying to understand how I got here. A month ago, I was living alone, waiting to die. Now I've got 4 children and a kitchen that smells like actual food, and a house that feels like a home again. Is that bad?" "It's terrifying." Silas turned to look at her. "I already lost one family, Emma. What if I lose this one too?" Emma felt the weight of his words, the fear behind them. "You can't think like that." "Can't help it. Every time I let myself feel happy, I remember what happened last time." Emma reached over and took his hand the same way he'd taken hers the night before. "Silas, we're not going anywhere. We fought too hard to get here. We're staying." He squeezed her hand, but didn't speak. "Besides," Emma added softly, "the children need you. Tommy needs a father. Lily needs someone to leave flowers with. Sammy needs—" She paused. "Sammy needs his papa." Silas made that sound again, half laugh and half sob. "I never thought I'd hear that word again." "Get used to it. He's not going to stop." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Silas stiffened. "You smell that?" Emma sniffed the air. Something sharp, acrid, wrong. Smoke. They both turned toward the horizon and saw orange light flickering against the darkness. Fire. "The north pasture." Silas breathed. "The summer hay." He was running before Emma could react. She heard him shouting for Buck, heard the ranch hands scrambling from the bunkhouse, heard horses screaming in the stable. Then she heard something that stopped her heart. Lily's voice, high and terrified, calling from somewhere in the darkness. "Emma! Emma, help!" Emma ran toward the sound, her bare feet pounding against the hard-packed dirt. "Lily! Where are you?" "The barn. I came to check on the horses, and now there's fire everywhere." The barn. The old hay barn 50 yards from the house. Already half consumed by flames. Emma reached the entrance just as the roof began to groan. "Lily! I'm stuck. Something fell on the door." Emma grabbed a fence rail and pried at the debris blocking the side door. Her arms screamed with effort. The heat was unbearable. Smoke filled her lungs. "Hold on, baby. I'm coming." She heard footsteps behind her. Silas, his face lit by flames, his eyes wild with terror. "The fire!" he gasped. It's just like—" He froze, his whole body locked up, just like Buck had described the trauma taking hold, dragging him back to the night he'd lost everything. "Silas," Emma screamed. "I need you, Lily's inside." He didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the flames, seeing something far away and long ago. "Silas, please, I can't do this alone." "Nothing." Emma felt despair crash over her. Then a small voice cut through the chaos. "Papa!" Sammy stood a few feet away, clutching his blanket, his eyes huge with fear. "Papa? Why is there fire?" Something snapped in Silas's face. The glaze over his eyes cleared. He looked at Sammy, then at Emma, then at the burning barn where Lily was trapped. "Not again," he growled. "Not this time." He grabbed the fence rail from Emma's hands and attacked the debris with furious strength. Wood splintered. Metal screamed. The blockage gave way. "Lily!" Silas plunged into the smoke. "Call out to me." "Here, I'm here." Emma held Sammy back, her whole body shaking with terror, watching the doorway, praying, bargaining with God, promising anything. If only Silas emerged from the smoke lily in his arms, both of them coughing and gasping, but alive. Alive. Emma collapsed to her knees, clutching Sammy, sobbing with relief. Silas set Lily down gently, then fell beside her, his body racked with coughs. "Papa saved me," Lily whispered, her voice hoarse. "The fire was everywhere, but Papa found me." Tommy appeared, having run from the house at the commotion. He stared at the burning barn, at his sisters, at Silas lying in the dirt. "What happened? Is everyone okay?" "Everyone's okay," Emma managed. "Everyone's okay." Silas pushed himself up to sitting. His hands were shaking. His face was black with soot, but his eyes were clear. "I didn't freeze," he said, almost to himself. "I didn't freeze this time." "No," Emma said softly. "You didn't." She reached out and took his hand. Around them, the ranch hands fought to contain the fire. The barn was lost, but the stable was saved. The house stood untouched. The horses were safe. And in the middle of the chaos, 5 people held on to each other. A family forged in fire, unbroken, together. The fire had taken the hay barn, but it had given them something far more valuable. In the days that followed, Emma watched Silas transform. The man who had frozen before flames 8 years ago now walked the ranch with his shoulders straight and his eyes clear. He laughed more, talked more, touched the children without hesitation, ruffling Tommy's hair, swinging Lily onto his shoulders, carrying Sammy around like the boy weighed nothing at all. The nightmares still came. Emma heard him pacing. Some nights heard the creak of the porch boards as he sat alone with his ghosts. But he always came to breakfast with a smile for Sammy and a nod for her. He was healing. They all were. 2 weeks after the fire, Silas called everyone together after supper. "Got something to discuss," he said, his voice gruff with emotion he was trying to hide. "The adoption papers. They're ready to file." Emma's heart stuttered. "I need to ride into town tomorrow. Talk to the judge. Make it official." Silas paused, looking at each child in turn. "But only if that's what you want." Tommy frowned. "What do you mean, if that's what we want? Of course we want it." "I'm asking anyway. This is your decision too. Once those papers are signed, I'm your legal guardian. Your father in the eyes of the law." Silas's voice dropped. "I need to know you're choosing this, not just accepting it because you've got no other options." Lily spoke first. "I choose you, Papa." The word still made Silas flinch, but now it was followed by something softer. Something like wonder. "Me too," Tommy said quietly. "I choose this." Sammy just climbed into Silas's lap and wrapped his arms around his neck. "Answer enough." Everyone looked at Emma. She stood slowly, her throat tight with emotions she couldn't name. "Mr. Morgan, Silas, when we came here I was so scared. I'd been trying to hold my family together with nothing but promises and stubbornness. I was 12 years old carrying a weight meant for grown folks." She took a breath. "You took that weight off me, not all at once but piece by piece. You gave Tommy someone to look up to. You gave Lily permission to be a child again. You gave Sammy a papa when he needed one most." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "And you gave me something I didn't even know I needed. A home. A real home. Not just a place to sleep, but a place where I belong." She moved forward and took his rough hand in both of hers. "I choose you. I choose this family. I choose this life. And I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of it." Silas pulled her into a fierce embrace, and for a moment, Emma let herself be a child again. Let herself be held and protected and loved. "You don't have to be worthy of anything," Silas said roughly. "You already are." The ride into town took most of the morning. Silas went alone, wanting to handle the legal matters without putting the children through another courthouse ordeal. Emma spent the hours cooking and cleaning and trying not to watch the road for his return. By noon, she'd scrubbed every surface twice. "Emma, you're making me dizzy," Buck said from the kitchen doorway. "Sit down, have some coffee. He'll be back when he's back." What if something goes wrong? What could go wrong? The judge already ruled in our favor. What if Mrs. Peterson filed an appeal? What if... Girl. Buck's voice was firm but kind. Stop borrowing trouble. You've got enough real worries without inventing new ones. Emma sank into a chair, her hands trembling around the coffee cup Buck handed her. "I just want it to be over. I want to know for sure that nobody can take us away." "Nobody's taking you anywhere. Silas would burn down the whole territory first." Emma managed a weak smile. "I believe that." "You should. I've never seen him like this, not even when Martha was alive." Buck sat across from her. "You kids saved him, you know. He was just marking time before you came, waiting to die so he could be with his family again." Emma's throat closed up. Now he's got something to live for. Someone to live for. Buck reached over and patted her hand. "That's a gift, Emma. Don't ever forget what you gave him." The sound of hoofbeats brought them both to their feet. Emma ran to the porch, her heart pounding. Silas rode into the yard, his face unreadable. He dismounted slowly, taking his time tying up his horse. Well, Emma couldn't wait any longer. What happened? Silas reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. "It's done." Emma grabbed the paper with shaking hands. The words blurred through her tears, but she caught enough to understand. Legal adoption. Silas Morgan. Emma Grace Holloway. Thomas James Holloway. Lily Rose Holloway. Samuel Robert Holloway. Legal and binding in the territory of Montana. "We're yours," Emma whispered. "Really yours." "You were always mine," Silas said quietly. "Now the law just agrees." Tommy burst from the barn, having heard the horses. "Is it done? Are we official?" Silas nodded. Tommy let out a whoop that sent the chickens scattering. He grabbed Silas in a bear hug that nearly knocked them both over. Lily came running next with Sammy toddling behind her. Within seconds, they were all tangled together in the yard, laughing and crying and holding on. Buck watched from the porch, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Well," he muttered to himself. "About damn time." That evening, Emma did something she'd been wanting to do for weeks. She walked to the graves behind the big oak tree. The wildflowers Lily had planted had spread, creating a small garden of color around the 3 stones. Emma knelt in the soft grass and placed her hand on the largest marker. "Mrs. Morgan, Martha, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know how any of this works." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But I wanted to thank you. For raising a man who could love again even after losing everything. For making him the kind of person who would take in 4 strangers and give them a home." A breeze rustled through the leaves above her. "I promise to take care of him. The way you would have. I'll make sure he eats and sleeps and doesn't work himself to death. And I'll make sure he knows every single day how much he matters." She moved to the smaller stones. "William. Grace. Your papa talks about you sometimes, late at night when he thinks nobody's listening. He tells stories about the things you used to do. The way William rode horses. The way Grace looked for angels in the clouds." Emma's voice cracked. "I'm sorry you didn't get to grow up. I'm sorry your mama and papa had to lose you. But I want you to know that they're not alone anymore. Tommy's here now, and he's learning to ride just like William did. Lily leaves flowers everywhere and sees beauty in things the rest of us miss, just like Grace. And Sammy. Sammy calls your papa Papa now. I hope that's okay. I hope you don't mind sharing." She sat back on her heels, tears streaming freely. "We're family now, all of us, the living and the dead. I don't quite understand how that works, but I feel it. I feel you." A hand touched her shoulder. Emma looked up to find Silas standing beside her, his own eyes wet. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough." His voice was rough. "That was beautiful, Emma. Martha would have loved you." You think so? I know so. Silas lowered himself to kneel beside her. She had a gift for seeing the good in people. Same gift you have. They knelt together in silence, two people bound by loss and love and the strange magic of second chances. Silas. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. He put his arm around her shoulders. Thank you for giving me a reason to keep going. They stayed there until the stars came out, keeping watch over the ones they'd lost and the ones they'd found. Summer began its slow fade into autumn. The days grew shorter. The air carried hints of the cold to come. The ranch bustled with preparations for winter, everyone working together to stockpile hay, repair the damaged barn, and secure the homestead against the coming storms. Emma found her rhythm in this new life. She cooked 3 meals a day for a family that kept growing as word spread about the quality of Morgan Ranch's kitchen. She mended clothes and preserved vegetables and learned to make the medicines Martha Morgan had kept in careful bottles on a high shelf. Tommy grew inches that summer, filling out with muscle from real work and real food. He rode beside Silas now, helping with the cattle drives, learning the business of ranching with fierce determination. The anger that had burned so hot in him was cooling into something steadier, something like purpose. Lily bloomed like her namesake flower. She made friends with every animal on the ranch, named them all, and cried for days when one of the barn cats had kittens. She still visited the graves every morning, leaving flowers and having long conversations with people she'd never met but somehow knew by heart. And Sammy. Sammy barely remembered a time before Silas. He called him Papa without hesitation now, and Silas had stopped flinching at the word. They were inseparable, the gruff rancher and the small boy, bound by something neither could explain, but both understood. On a cool evening in late August, Emma was washing dishes when Buck appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Miss Emma, you got a visitor." "A visitor who?" "Old man. Says his name is Henry. Says he met you in a town plaza about 2 months back. Shared some beans with him." Emma's hands stilled in the soapy water. The old man. The one who had told her about Morgan Ranch. The one who had sent her down this path. "Bring him in." Henry looked older than she remembered, his white hair thinner, his walking stick bearing more of his weight. But his eyes were the same. Kind. Knowing. "Well, well." He settled into a chair at the kitchen table. "Look at you, child. Healthy and whole and happy, if I'm not mistaken." "Because of you." Emma dried her hands and sat across from him. "You told me about this place, about Mr. Morgan. I told you about a possibility. You made it real." Henry accepted the cup of coffee she offered with a grateful nod. "I've been traveling through the territory hearing stories. Stories about a bitter rancher who took in 4 orphan children and found his heart again. Stories about a girl who cooks like an angel and runs a household like a general. Stories about love growing where only grief had been." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "People exaggerate." "Do they?" Henry sipped his coffee. "I've seen a lot in my years, child. A lot of pain, a lot of loss. But I've also seen miracles, real ones. The kind that happen when broken people find each other and decide to heal together." He set down his cup and fixed her with those knowing eyes. "That's what you've done here, you and that man and those children. You've made a miracle." "It doesn't feel like a miracle. It just feels like life." "That's what the best miracles feel like." Henry rose, leaning heavily on his stick. "I just wanted to see for myself. Make sure the story ended happy." "You're leaving already?" "Got more traveling to do, more people to nudge in the right direction." He winked. "That's what old men like me are for." Emma walked him to the door. "Henry, how did you know back in that plaza when you told me about this place? How did you know it would work out?" Henry paused on the threshold. "I didn't know, child. But I hoped. Sometimes hope is all we've got. And sometimes," he smiled, "sometimes it's enough." He walked away down the dusty road, and Emma watched until he disappeared around the bend. When she turned back, Silas was standing in the hallway. "Who was that?" An old friend, the one who told me about your ranch. Silas was quiet for a moment. Remind me to thank him someday. He's gone. Then I'll thank him in my prayers. Silas moved toward the kitchen, then stopped. Emma. Yes. The papers came through today. Full adoption signed and sealed by the territorial governor himself. He pulled a thick envelope from his coat. It's done. Really done. Nobody can challenge it now. Emma took the envelope with trembling hands. This means you're Holloway's. But you're also Morgan's now. Both. Forever. She opened the envelope and read the words that made it official. Emma Grace Morgan, formerly Holloway. Thomas James Morgan. Lily Rose Morgan. Samuel Robert Morgan. Morgan, she whispered. We're Morgans. If you want to be, you can keep Holloway if you prefer. I won't be offended. Emma looked up at him, this man who had given them everything. I want both. I want to be Emma Grace Holloway Morgan. I want to carry my parents with me and still belong to this family. Silas nodded slowly. I think that's exactly right. He held out his arms, and she walked into them. Welcome home, Emma Grace Holloway Morgan. Welcome to the family. The first snow fell on a quiet November morning. Emma woke to find the world transformed, white and silent and new. She wrapped herself in a blanket and crept downstairs to start the fire. Silas was already there, coffee in hand, staring out the window at the falling snow. Couldn't sleep, she asked. Martha loved the first snow, always said it was God's way of giving the world a fresh start. He took a sip of coffee. Figured I'd watch it for her. Emma stood beside him, watching the flakes drift down. Silas. Do you think she knows Martha about us? Silas was quiet for a long moment. I like to think so. I like to think she and your folks are up there somewhere watching over all of us, proud of what we've built. I think so too. They stood together in comfortable silence as the snow kept falling. One by one, the children woke and joined them. Tommy appeared first, drawn by the smell of coffee. Then Lily, her eyes wide with wonder at the white world outside. Finally, Sammy, stumbling down the stairs with his blanket trailing behind him. Snow. Lily pressed her face against the window. Papa looks snow. I see it, sweetheart. Can we play in it, please? Silas looked at Emma. She smiled. After breakfast. They spent the day building snowmen and having snowball fights and making snow angels in the fresh powder. Buck and the ranch hands joined in their laughter echoing across the valley. When evening came and they gathered around the fire, exhausted and happy and warm, Emma looked at her family. Tommy stretched out on the rug, already half asleep. Lily curled up against Silas's side, telling him about the snow angels and how they would fly up to heaven to play with his Grace and William. Sammy sound asleep in Emma's lap, his thumb in his mouth, his face peaceful. And Silas, his arm around Lily, his eyes meeting Emma's across the room. Thank you, he mouthed. She shook her head. Thank you. They sat there as the fire crackled and the snow fell outside, a family built from loss and love and the stubborn refusal to give up. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Emma returned to the sitting room. Silas was still there, staring into the dying embers. You should sleep, she said. Soon. He patted the seat beside him. Sit with me a while. She sat. Emma, I need to tell you something. Her heart clenched. What is it? When you showed up at my gate that day, I was ready to die. I'd been ready for years, just going through the motions, waiting for it to be over. He turned to look at her. But you wouldn't let me. You and those children, you wouldn't let me give up. Silas, let me finish. He took her hand. I spent 8 years believing I'd never feel anything again. Never love again. Never hope again. And then 4 hungry children appeared, and everything changed. His voice broke. You saved my life, Emma. All of you. And I will spend every day I have left making sure you know how much that means. Emma leaned against his shoulder, tears sliding down her cheeks. "We saved each other," she whispered. "That's what family does." Silas pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "That's what family does." Outside, the snow kept falling, blanketing the ranch in white, covering the scars of the old fire, preparing the land for new growth in the spring. Inside, a fire burned warm and bright, and a family held on to each other. Not because they had to, because they chose to. And in the end, that made all the difference. Emma woke the next morning to the smell of coffee and the sound of children laughing in the kitchen. She lay still for a moment, savoring the sounds of home. Her home. She thought about her parents buried far away in a small plot she might never see again. She thought about the promise she'd made to her dying mother. Keep them together, no matter what. She had kept that promise. But she'd also done something more. She'd found a place where keeping them together meant keeping them happy, keeping them loved, keeping them safe in a way she never could have managed alone. "Mama," she thought, "I hope you can see this. I hope you're proud." She got up and went downstairs to join her family. Tommy was teaching Sammy to crack eggs. Lily was setting the table with wildflowers she'd somehow found beneath the snow. Silas stood at the stove attempting to flip pancakes with more enthusiasm than skill. "Good morning," Emma said. 4 faces turned toward her, each one lit with joy. "Morning, Emma." "Morning, sis." "Good morning, sweetheart." "Mornin'?" Emma looked at them all, her heart so full it ached. She thought about everything they'd been through, the loss, the fear, the desperate journey to a stranger's gate, the trial, the fire, the courtroom battle, the long, slow work of building trust and love. And she thought about where they'd ended up, here, together, home. She moved to the stove and gently took the spatula from Silas's hand. "Let me." He stepped back with exaggerated relief. "Thank God, I was making a mess of it." "You were trying. That's what counts." She flipped the pancakes with practiced ease, then turned to look at her family gathered around the kitchen. 4 people who had saved each other from loneliness and despair. 5 if she counted herself. And she did count herself. For the first time in a long time, she counted. "Breakfast is ready," she announced. They gathered around the table, holding hands for grace, the way Silas said Martha used to do. "Lord," Silas said quietly, "thank you for this food. Thank you for this family. Thank you for second chances and stubborn children, and the grace to try again." He paused. "Amen." "Amen," they echoed. And then they ate, together, the way families do, the way they would for all the years to come. Because in the end, home wasn't a place. It was the people who chose to love you, and they had chosen each other, forever.